She said goodbye, thinking it was the end of your story. But little did she know, it was the beginning of yours. You see, when a man finally stops chasing, explaining, and trying to prove his worth, something powerful happens. He shifts from reaction to reflection. And that shift changes everything. In this video, we'll break down what truly happens after she says goodbye, and why your silence, your stillness, and your self-mastery might be the ending she never expected. Number 1. The goodbye she thought was final. When she walked away, she thought it would shake you. She expected anger, confusion, maybe even desperation, but instead, you gave her nothing. No argument, no closure speech, no emotional breakdown. Just calm. That calm unsettled her, because she mistook it for weakness, when in truth, it was composure. A Stoic man doesn't fight to change what's beyond his control. He accepts, adapts, and evolves. And in that moment, you did exactly that. You accepted her choice without letting it destroy your peace. At first, she told herself she was doing the right thing. She believed walking away would make you realize her worth, that your silence was just a phase before the chase began. She thought she could predict your every reaction, that you'd send those long, emotional texts, or that you'd try to convince her how much she meant to you. But when that didn't happen, when you stayed silent and composed, something inside her began to shift. The silence she thought she wanted started to echo in ways she didn't expect. Each day that passed without hearing from you was a reminder that maybe, just maybe, she overestimated her control over your emotions. You see, there's a unique kind of power in restraint. In a world where most people react out of fear or ego, your calm became your statement. While she looked for signs of pain in your absence, you were building strength in your solitude. You went to the gym, focused on your work, invested in yourself. You didn't post anything to prove a point, you simply lived. And the peace that followed wasn't for show. It was real. That's what made her uneasy. Because, for the first time, she wasn't the center of your story. You were. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny. For what could more aptly fit your needs?" That's the essence of your response. You didn't resist what happened. You understood that her goodbye was part of the design meant to make you stronger. And instead of drowning in what-ifs, you found purpose in what's next. That's the quiet strength of a Stoic man. He doesn't beg for closure because he already carries it within himself. Months later, when she scrolls through her phone and stumbles across your name, she'll feel it, that mix of regret and realization. Because the man she left behind isn't the same one who would have once fought to keep her. You've changed. You've grown. You've learned that peace is not something you seek from others. It's something you protect within yourself. And that's the twist she never saw coming. The goodbye she thought would end your story became the beginning of hers. The story of how she lost a man who didn't need to be chased because he had already found himself. Your silence wasn't revenge. It was evolution. And that evolution is what truly haunts her, not because you're gone, but because you're finally free. Number 2. The echo she didn't expect. Weeks later, the silence she once demanded starts to echo. Not through your words, but through your absence. At first, she told herself that walking away was the right decision, that she needed space, clarity, maybe even someone new. But over time, that silence she once craved begins to feel heavier. The quiet nights stretch longer. The laughter she used to fake doesn't sound as real. And even the smallest reminders of you, a song, a phrase, a routine, begin to carry weight. It's not your voice she misses. It's your calm presence, your steady energy. that feeling of emotional safety that only a grounded man can bring. You see, when a man embodies true composure, he doesn't chase validation or cling to what's slipping away. He lets go not out of bitterness, but out of strength. That's what she didn't expect. She thought silence meant you didn't care. But she's slowly realizing it meant you cared deeply enough to stop forcing what wasn't meant to stay. The kind of man who can walk away with peace in his heart is the one who lingers longest in her mind. Because peace, once lost, becomes haunting. A Stoic man understands this truth, that detachment is not coldness, but clarity. As Epictetus taught, we suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgments about them. You didn't judge her choice, you accepted it. You didn't try to rewrite the ending, you simply closed the book with grace. That kind of strength doesn't fade, it echoes. It lingers in the moments she doesn't talk about, in the stillness of her thoughts when the world quiets down. She thought goodbye would give her control, that you'd come back asking for answers or closure. But instead, you did the opposite. You let time and silence speak for you. And in doing so, you showed her what real emotional maturity looks like. You became the calm she can't find in others, the peace she didn't appreciate until it was gone. That's the ending she didn't expect, not one of anger or chaos or grand gestures, but of quiet strength. You didn't need to prove a point, because your growth became the proof. In your silence, she found the loudest lesson of all, that a Stoic man doesn't lose himself. When love ends, he finds himself even more. Before we continue, take a moment to reflect on this truth. Silence doesn't just end a story, it reveals what words never could. When you no longer chase closure, you create space for clarity. That's the power of stillness. It speaks in ways noise never can. If this part resonates with you, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what peace and detachment mean to you. Or, if you simply felt that shift, that quiet strength type peace became my power. It's a reminder that even in silence, a man's calm can echo louder than any goodbye. Number 3. The stillness that confused her. You didn't post quotes about pain. You didn't broadcast your loneliness. Instead, you stayed still, and that stillness confused her. While she was busy showing the world she'd moved on, you were quietly proving to yourself that you could stand alone. You didn't need to announce your peace. You lived it. The gym became your therapy. Books became your teachers. Long walks replaced long arguments. You stopped looking for closure in her words and started finding it in your own reflection. Each morning, the silence that used to feel heavy started to feel like freedom. At first, she thought you were just pretending to be fine. She told herself, "He'll reach out soon. He always does." But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and nothing came. No messages, no late-night calls, no signs of weakness. You didn't chase what had already walked away. You didn't fight the inevitable. Like Marcus Aurelius said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." You found that retreat, and that's what made you different. You weren't waiting for her to miss you. You were learning to no longer need her. That's what unsettled her the most. Because while she was performing confidence for the world, you were actually building it. Your silence became power. It wasn't an act of pride or manipulation. It was alignment. You understood what the Stoics always taught, that peace doesn't come from control, but from surrendering to what's outside of it. You accepted the ending not as defeat, but as redirection. You didn't need to prove your worth. You remembered it. And somewhere along the line, the story flipped. She started checking your profile, not out of love, but curiosity mixed with confusion. Why isn't he saying anything? Why does he look happier now? Those thoughts started to echo louder than her pride. Because when you detach with calm instead of chaos, it forces the other person to sit with their own noise. She realized that the stillness she once mocked as coldness was actually strength. The kind of strength she hadn't found in anyone else. Your silence became the mirror she couldn't escape, reflecting not your absence, but her own loss of control. That's what happens when a man chooses peace over persuasion. You didn't walk away to punish her. You walked away to protect your soul. You stopped trying to make her understand your value, and that's when she finally began to see it. She said goodbye, thinking you'd crumble, but instead, you rose quietly calm, grounded, unshaken. And now, the silence she once demanded has become the sound that keeps her awake at night. Number 4. The world you built without her. Instead of waiting for closure, you built. You worked on your mind, your body, your purpose. Every day, you poured energy into something real, something lasting. And soon, she'll notice that your world didn't collapse when she left it expanded. You didn't chase her. You chased better habits. You didn't fight for attention. You fought for discipline. And that quiet evolution speaks louder than any apology ever could. You see, when she walked away, she assumed you'd pause your life, that you'd sit there analyzing every word, every memory, wondering what went wrong. She imagined you replaying conversations, checking your phone, staying trapped in the what-ifs. But instead, you shifted. You realized that life doesn't stop because someone leaves. You took that pain and turned it into fuel. While she was out trying to prove she'd moved on, you were quietly rebuilding, not to make her jealous, but to make yourself proud. Maybe it started small: a morning run, a new book, a cleaner diet, a stricter schedule. But those small things began to transform you. The same silence that once felt heavy started to feel powerful. You began to enjoy your own company, to understand that solitude isn't emptiness, it's preparation. A Stoic man understands that peace is not found in someone else's presence, but in his own alignment with purpose. Like Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." You stopped thinking about what was lost and started focusing on what could be built. Weeks turned into months, and the man she left behind became unrecognizable, not because you pretended to be fine, but because you became fine. You stopped performing for others. You didn't need her attention anymore because you earned something greater: self-respect. You found joy in discipline, confidence in consistency, and power in patience. You learned that peace is not passive, it's an active choice, built brick by brick through restraint and self-control. And now, while she scrolls through your page late at night, seeing a man grounded, focused, and unbothered, something inside her shifts. She begins to realize that the world you built without her isn't fueled by resentment. It's built on renewal. You didn't need revenge. You just needed direction. You didn't build to make her regret losing you. You built because you finally remembered who you were before the chaos. That's what Stoicism teaches. That we can't control who leaves, but we can control who we become after they do. You chose the harder path, not the emotional reaction, but the steady reconstruction of your own peace. You didn't escape the pain by ignoring it. You mastered it by facing it. You didn't seek validation from her return. You found fulfillment in your growth. And now, when she looks back, she doesn't just see the man she once knew. She sees the man she'll never have again. Because the world you built without her became the very world she now wishes she could enter. Number 5. The shift in power. At first, she felt powerful. She thought your silence was submission, that your calm meant you were broken, defeated, or still waiting. She believed she had control because she was the one who said goodbye. But power doesn't belong to the one who walks away. It belongs to the one who can stay grounded when everything around him is shifting. And as time passed, that truth began to reveal itself. The very silence she once mocked started to echo in her own mind. She began to realize that your stillness wasn't weakness. It was strength, disguised as calm. You see, when you stopped reacting, when you refused to fight for her attention, something changed. The energy that once flowed toward her began to return to you. You stopped chasing her and started chasing your purpose. You began to invest in your body, your mind, and your discipline. While she tried to prove to herself that she had moved on, posting more, laughing louder, staying busy, you were mastering the art of being still. You were learning what Epictetus meant when he said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That's what you became, a man who no longer needed validation to feel valuable. And this is where the real shift in power happens, not in arguments, not in who texts first, but in emotional control. The one who needs less, who stays composed when others crave reaction, always holds the upper hand. You stopped being part of her emotional storm and became the calm after it. That unsettled her, because she expected to be missed loudly, not silently. She thought you would chase, explain, and plead for clarity. Instead, you gave her peace, and peace is something she didn't know how to handle. Over time, she begins to notice it, the way your absence feels different from anyone else's. Your silence doesn't feel like indifference. It feels like evolution. You're not bitter, you're not vengeful. You've simply outgrown the chaos. And that's the part she never expected. That your detachment wasn't cold, it was healing. That your silence wasn't revenge, it was self-respect. A Stoic man doesn't win by proving his point. He wins by mastering his emotions. He doesn't need to shout to show strength. His calm presence speaks for him. You didn't mirror her actions. You rose above them. You didn't match her indifference with anger, but with understanding. And that's what shifted the balance entirely. Now, she's left wondering how you moved on so peacefully, how you transformed pain into presence. What she doesn't realize is that this ending wasn't the loss she imagined. It was the beginning of your self-mastery. You no longer orbit around her emotions. You've become the center of your own peace. And that quiet power, the one she can't touch or control, is what she never expected to face a man who no longer needs her validation because he finally found his worth within himself. If this part resonated with you, take a moment to pause and reflect on what true strength looks like in your own life. Is it in reaction or in restraint? Is it in trying to control others or mastering yourself? Your journey, like hers, reveals where the real power lies. Not in who speaks louder, but in who remains calm when silence demands it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of this moment spoke to you the most? Or simply type, "True power is calm," in the comments, if you're walking the same path of quiet strength. Number 6. The rewrites in her mind. When pride is hurt, people rewrite stories to make themselves feel right. She told herself, you didn't care that you were cold, distant, maybe even heartless. It's easier to believe that than to admit she lost someone who had learned to stay calm when everything else was falling apart. In her version, you were detached, indifferent, already moving on. But over time, that story starts to weaken. Because silence has a way of revealing what words try to hide. It's not cruelty that unsettles her now. It's the strength behind your stillness. You didn't disappear to punish her. You withdrew to protect yourself. You didn't go silent to win. You did it to heal. At first, her friends nodded along when she painted you as the emotionless one. She'd say, "He never cared. He just walked away." And for a while, she believed it. But days turned into weeks, and that narrative began to lose power. Because while she was still explaining, you were expanding. While she was reacting, you were reflecting. You stopped chasing closure and started creating clarity. You stopped needing her validation and found strength in your solitude. It's in that quiet transformation that everything began to shift. Now, she's the one questioning the version she built to protect her ego, wondering how someone she labeled as cold could move forward with such peace, such purpose. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." You embodied that. You didn't try to match her emotional chaos or justify your calmness. Instead, you showed restraint, and that restraint spoke volumes. You chose to master your response, and that mastery became your message. What she once called detachment, she now sees as discipline. What she once labeled as indifference, she now recognizes as inner control. And that's when the truth hits her. Not all silence is absence. Some silence is evolution. The man she thought she could define has become someone she can't quite read anymore. You no longer orbit her emotions or wait for her attention. You've become grounded in something deeper yourself. That realization unsettles her because, for the first time, she realizes you don't need her to feel whole. The power dynamic flipped without a single argument, without a single goodbye speech. A Stoic man understands that peace isn't found in control, it's found in acceptance. You didn't need to rewrite the story because you lived the truth. And now, while she wrestles with her rewritten version, you've already moved into your next chapter, the one where your silence speaks louder than her pride ever could. Number 7. The return of reflection. One night, when the noise around her fades, she starts to think, not about what went wrong, but about who you became. The world around her quiets down, and suddenly, the distractions she once used to forget you stop working. The music doesn't comfort her. The conversations feel shallow, and even the people who once seemed to replace your presence can't fill that silent space you left behind. She remembers your patience, your steadiness, the way you stayed calm even when things got tense. Back then, she mistook your composure for indifference. But now, through the lens of distance and time, she sees it for what it truly was: strength. She starts to realize you weren't emotionless. You were emotionally mature. You lived what Stoics call apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from unnecessary disturbance. You didn't run away from emotion. You simply refused to let it dictate your peace. You mastered what most people never even attempt: the art of inner control. While she was trying to prove she didn't need you, you were quietly proving to yourself that you didn't need chaos to feel alive. That difference, though invisible at first, is now unmistakable. Maybe she's lying in bed, scrolling through old messages, reading the calm tone in your replies, realizing how grounded you always were, even when she tried to provoke you. Or perhaps she sees a photo, that quiet confidence in your posture, that unbothered expression that once frustrated her because it couldn't be manipulated. It hits her. Then you weren't detached. You were disciplined. You didn't build walls. You built boundaries. You didn't disappear to punish her. You stepped back to protect your peace. That's what unsettles her now. Your peace became your power. The man who once gave her emotional security now radiates self-security. You no longer needed her validation to feel significant, and that absence of need makes her realize what she truly lost. Because she didn't just lose a man, she lost an energy that was calm, grounding, and rare. The kind of energy that doesn't compete, doesn't beg, doesn't chase. The kind of man who knows that walking away with dignity leaves a deeper mark than any desperate plea ever could. And as she reflects, something shifts within her. She starts to question her own reactions, the way she pushed away someone who brought her peace because she confused peace with boredom. That's the irony. She mistook stability for lack of passion, not realizing that real passion isn't chaos, it's presence. You were present, patient, aware, steady, and now that she finally sees it, you're no longer there to prove it. That's the ending she didn't expect. Because she said goodbye thinking she was closing your chapter, but she ended up reopening her own. Your absence forced her into reflection, and your calm became the echo that lingers long after the words faded. You didn't win through revenge or regret, you won through restraint. And in a world that celebrates noise, you taught her the quiet truth. A Stoic man doesn't need to be remembered loudly. His silence speaks for him. Number 8. The contrast she can't unsee. Every new person she meets reminds her of you, not because you were perfect, but because you were grounded. You weren't chasing attention, you were pursuing purpose. And that kind of balance is rare. In a world full of noise, your quiet focus stands out. She used to think your calm made you boring. Now she sees it made you strong. And once a woman sees that kind of strength, it's hard to forget it. At first, she thought letting you go would open the door to something more exciting. Someone who would make her feel butterflies again, who would flood her with messages and never let a conversation fade. But over time, she realized that excitement without depth is just noise. You weren't unpredictable. You were stable. You didn't chase validation. You created value. And that difference, that quiet steadiness she once overlooked, now follows her everywhere she goes. Every man she meets reminds her of what she lost, because no one carries that same centered energy you had. She'll laugh with someone new, but something feels off. She'll go on dates, but none of them feel as calm, as safe, or as grounded as the moments she spent with you. Because it wasn't your words that made her feel secure, it was your presence. That's what a Stoic man understands. Presence is power. You didn't need to prove your worth through grand gestures or dramatic emotions. You simply were consistent, disciplined, collected. You never let chaos pull you out of alignment. And that control, that emotional stillness, became your quiet strength. Now she can't unsee the difference. The men she once thought were fun now look frantic. The ones who post every emotion online seem hollow. She used to think your calm made you distant, but now she realizes it made you free. You weren't detached from emotion, you were detached from drama. And that's something most people can't understand until they lose it. There's a moment maybe late at night, maybe after another failed connection, when she thinks back to you. Not the arguments, not the ending, but the energy. The way you could sit in silence without needing to fill it. The way you could handle tension without losing control. The way you made her feel like everything was okay, even when life wasn't perfect. That's the contrast that lingers the peace you carried versus the chaos she chose. You didn't become unforgettable because you tried to be. You became unforgettable because you stayed true to yourself when everything around you tried to provoke a reaction. That's what Stoicism teaches, that mastery over self is the highest form of strength. And now, as she looks back, she finally understands what she couldn't before. Your calm wasn't indifference, it was wisdom. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was power. And your goodbye, it wasn't an ending. It was the moment she realized what true strength actually looks like, and that she might never find it again. Take a moment to let that sink in. True strength isn't loud, it's quiet, composed, and consistent. It's the kind of power that doesn't demand to be seen, yet leaves a lasting impression wherever it goes. So, as you reflect on this, think about what kind of energy you're choosing to carry. Are you chasing noise or cultivating peace? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, or just type, "Stillness is power," if this message resonates with you. Number 9. The message your silence sends. Your silence became your loudest statement. "I'm not waiting anymore." You didn't post cryptic quotes or try to prove that you were fine. You didn't chase, explain, or defend yourself. You simply let go, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Because you finally understood that peace speaks louder than any argument ever could. She expected a reaction, some proof that she still had an emotional hold on you. But instead, you gave her something far more unsettling: complete stillness. That's when she began to realize that your silence wasn't weakness, it was power. She used to think that the one who says goodbye holds the power. But as time goes on, she feels the quiet shift. You're not orbiting her anymore. You're not available to her moods, her confusion, her half-hearted attention. And that change, that calm detachment, shakes her more than any words could. Because she can sense it. You're not pretending to be okay. You actually are. You've redirected your energy from wondering why she left to asking, "How can I grow from this?" You've turned heartbreak into fuel. That's the kind of transformation that can't be faked. And here's the truth. Most people miss silence reveals who's truly at peace. While she fills her days with distractions, trying to convince herself she's fine, your focus has shifted inward. You've started building your body, your discipline, your goals. You no longer need her validation to feel seen. You stopped seeing her goodbye as rejection and began to see it as revelation, a moment that exposed what needed to end so that something stronger could begin within you. That's the essence of Stoicism: mastering what you can control and releasing what you can't. You can't control her choices, her emotions, or the timing of her regrets. But you can control your response, and your silence became that response. It's not coldness, it's clarity. You chose to withdraw your energy from where it was wasted and reinvest it into your purpose. And that kind of self-respect has a gravity of its own. It pulls everything chaotic out of your orbit. Now, when she looks back, she won't just see the man she said goodbye to. She'll see the man who didn't break when she walked away. The man who stayed grounded, calm, and composed while she expected him to fall apart. She'll realize that your silence wasn't the absence of emotion. It was the presence of strength. Because you learned something, only time and solitude can teach that peace is more valuable than attention, and self-respect is worth more than closure. And that's the ending she never expected. Not that you moved on, but that you outgrew the version of yourself that once needed her to stay. Number 10. The mirror of regret. Regret doesn't always arrive with tears. Sometimes it comes with realization. It shows up quietly, not in the chaos of the breakup, but in the stillness that follows. Maybe it's late at night when she's lying awake, scrolling through her phone, seeing your name in old messages. Maybe it's when she's sitting across from someone new, and for a moment, she feels nothing. That's when the truth hits, not like a wave, but like a reflection she can't avoid. She begins to see that you weren't trying to win arguments. You were trying to build peace. You weren't silent because you didn't care. You were silent because you refused to let anger lead the way. At first, she mistook your calm for distance. She thought your quietness meant indifference. But now, she understands it was strength, a kind of control that most people never learn. You weren't running from emotion. You were mastering it. You embodied what Epictetus once said: "No man is free who is not master of himself." That was your secret. You stopped reacting to what she said or did, and instead started choosing how you responded. You didn't play emotional games or chase validation. You stood firm in your peace. Now, she feels that void, not the absence of attention, but the absence of your grounding energy. The kind of steadiness that made her feel safe, even when she didn't admit it. She goes out, meets people, fills her days with noise, but deep down, she knows something's missing. Because she didn't lose a man who needed her to feel complete. She lost a man who had already built his completeness within himself. And that kind of loss doesn't fade easily. It lingers, like an echo that keeps reminding her of what real stability feels like. She starts to remember how different it felt to be around you, how your presence calmed her storms, how your silence never came from pride, but from wisdom. You didn't react to disrespect with revenge. You simply removed yourself from what disturbed your peace. That's what separates a Stoic man from the rest. He doesn't fight to prove his worth. He walks away when it's no longer valued. And now, as she reflects on everything, she realizes that your goodbye wasn't a punishment. It was your final lesson. She said goodbye, thinking she could replace you easily. But what she didn't expect was to face the version of herself that only existed when you were gone. The one forced to sit with silence, with accountability, with truth. Regret has a way of showing people what they took for granted, and now she's seeing it clearly. She didn't just lose a man. She lost a mirror that reflected everything she needed to grow. And that realization that she pushed away a man who had mastered himself lingers longer than love ever did. Number 11. The man you've become. Your evolution isn't about revenge, it's about renewal. You've become the kind of man who no longer begs for attention, but commands respect through quiet confidence and consistent action. You now embody what Stoicism truly means: strength without aggression, peace without passivity, power without pride. And that transformation, that inner calm, is what defines you, not her goodbye. When she walked away, she thought she was closing your chapter. She expected you to fall apart, to question yourself, to drown in self-doubt. But instead, you began to rise, slowly, quietly, intentionally. You stopped asking why she left, and started asking who you were becoming. You began to see that her absence wasn't punishment. It was permission. Permission to grow, to evolve, to return to yourself. In the months that followed, you started living differently. You began waking up earlier, taking care of your body, reading more, thinking more deeply. You learned to enjoy solitude instead of fearing it. And in that solitude, something awakened a stillness that gave birth to strength. You stopped chasing happiness from others and started cultivating it within yourself. That shift, that mental clarity, became your quiet power. You see, a Stoic man doesn't chase validation. He chases virtue. He measures progress, not by applause, but by peace. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every moment of silence became part of your training, sharpening your focus, testing your discipline, teaching you how to stand firm when emotions tried to pull you apart. You learned that real control doesn't come from changing others. It comes from mastering yourself. And now, when she sees you, no anger, no bitterness, just composure. It unsettles her, because the man she once knew would have begged, pleaded, or tried to prove his worth. But this man doesn't need to prove anything. His stillness speaks for him. His presence carries weight. His boundaries have become his peace. That's the ending she didn't expect. Not a man broken by loss, but a man reborn through discipline. You've evolved into someone who no longer needs closure, because he's already found it within. You no longer wait for apologies, explanations, or validation. You've become grounded, unshakable, focused, and free. And in a world full of noise, that kind of silence is power. Because the man you've become isn't just healed, he's transformed. He doesn't wish to return to the past. He's too busy building a future worthy of his strength. And that's the true essence of Stoicism, to remain unmoved by what's outside and fully alive within. Think about it. Every setback that once felt unbearable was quietly preparing you for this version of yourself. The man who no longer reacts, but responds. The man who doesn't chase, but attracts through discipline and presence. That's what growth truly looks like. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady and unshakable. If this message speaks to you, drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Tell me what part of your own transformation has surprised you the most. And if you're on this same path of quiet evolution, type "I choose growth" in the comments to remind yourself and others that peace is the ultimate power. Number 12. The ending she never saw coming. She thought goodbye meant freedom. But it was your freedom that came first. While she looked backward, you moved forward. And now, she faces the ending she never saw coming. Not your heartbreak, but your rebirth. Because the man she left is gone. And the man you've become no longer needs her to feel complete. When she said goodbye, she imagined you replaying every memory, waiting for her to realize what she lost. But instead of breaking, you built yourself back, piece by piece. The nights that used to echo with her absence became nights of reflection, discipline, and quiet growth. You began to understand something she never did, that peace isn't found in someone's presence, it's found in your own clarity. She thought your silence meant pain, but it was patience. It was the sound of a man evolving. At first, she tried to convince herself that you'd come back, that eventually your emotions would drag you toward her again. But weeks turned into months, and instead of hearing from you, she heard about you, how you've been focused, grounded, and unstoppable. That's when the realization begins to sting. Because she didn't expect you to outgrow the version of yourself that once revolved around her. She didn't expect to see you glow in solitude, to see your calm presence become your strength. There's something profoundly unsettling about watching someone you once thought you controlled become completely untouchable. That's what your evolution did. It broke the illusion. The more you embraced your stoic calm, the more her ego trembled. She started to see that your distance wasn't revenge. It was release. You weren't punishing her. You were freeing yourself from needing her approval to define your worth. That's the kind of power that can't be faked. You became your own master. You learned to redirect pain into purpose, to transform silence into strength. You stopped chasing explanations and started chasing excellence. While she was trying to replace you with temporary thrills, you were rebuilding yourself into something permanent, a man of peace, principle, and presence. And now, the ending she never saw coming has arrived. The ending where you no longer react to her, where her validation no longer defines your mood, where her absence no longer feels like loss. You've become what Stoicism teaches: calm amid chaos, grounded amid uncertainty, and unshaken by what you cannot control. She thought goodbye would break you, but it was your rebirth. She thought she was walking away from the man she knew, but in truth, she was watching the beginning of the man she'll never have again. And that is the ending she never saw coming. So, if you've made it this far, remember this. Sometimes, her goodbye isn't rejection, it's redirection. A stoic man doesn't chase what leaves. He grows into what stays: peace, purpose, and presence. If this message resonated with you, Give this video a like, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and make sure to watch the next video on your screen. It'll help you go even deeper into mastering your emotions and protecting your peace. Because this isn't the end of your story, it's the start of your strength.